People just say what they think is the right thing to say. They just say what they think is supposed to be said. Whatever sounds best. Because in this day and age, it's all about appearance. It's all about surface level. We don't really dig any deeper than that. Whenever we do, we usually find how shallow everybody is. I was in class the other day and my professor asked everybody to rate themselves on a trustworthiness/loyalty scale from 1 to 10. And everybody said 10. So I typed in the chat and said, ain't no way all of y'all are a 10. Come on now, be realistic. And this situation reminded me of the mentalities between lazy people and hardworking people. My mom is a supervisor at her job and occasionally she hands out self-assessments. This is where her employees have to rate themselves on their own performances and work ethic on a scale from 1 to 10. And then from there, she corrects it and puts more realistic answers. But they don't know that she does that. She said that her laziest employees always give themselves outstanding reviews on their work ethic and performance. And her hardest workers always give themselves more realistic answers, and they hardly ever rate themselves a 10 out of 10, which I thought was incredibly interesting, and it led me to draw this conclusion. The secret truth about hard workers is they always think they could be working harder. If you tell them to rate their own performance from 1 to 10, they'll hardly ever give you a 10. And if you're sitting here saying, well, I'm a hard worker and I'd give myself a 10, then newsflash, buddy, you're probably not that hard a worker. Because just like the self-assessments, lazy people usually would consider themselves pretty hard workers. And realistically, you could be doing more. No matter how hard you work, even if you are a hard worker, you could probably be doing more. And if you're crazy about your work, insanely passionate and obsessive, you'll be doing the most. Which is why most wildly successful people are always considered crazy or obsessed with their craft. Usually they are, because that's what it takes to shine above everybody else. Because to be doing the absolute most possible, you have to be crazy. You have to be obsessed. That's why they shine above everybody else. There's this quote I like about winners and lazy people. It goes, lazy people do little work and think they should be winning. Winners work as hard as possible and still wonder if they're being lazy. And I like that quote because it speaks exactly to what I said is the secret truth about hard workers is they always think they could be doing more. Anyways, that's all besides the point. My professor asked everyone to rate themselves on a trustworthiness/loyalty scale from 1 to 10, and everybody said 10. He then later asked that if they had a friend who they knew was committing crimes and hurting people, would they do the right thing by snitching and likely getting them sent to jail, or do the wrong thing and just let them keep doing it? They all said they'd do the right thing and tell on them and get them sent to jail. And I thought that response from everybody was very interesting because I thought everybody just said that they were a 10 out of 10 on a trustworthiness/loyalty scale. How are you a 10 in the loyalty department, but you would snitch on your friend? I mean, yes, it's the right thing to do. Obviously, they're committing crimes, but that does make you untrustworthy and disloyal, whether it's the right thing to do or not. But want to know why they rated themselves a 10 and then contradicted themselves by saying they would do the right thing? Because in both instances, that sounded like the best thing to say. They didn't actually give themselves an honest analysis. They simply mindlessly delivered what they thought was the right thing to say. I bring all this up to highlight the instance where we've got a bunch of people saying, white people, I hate white people, white lives don't matter, etc. And getting offended because Kanye wore a White Lives Matter shirt, and then turning around and saying they don't like Kanye because he's anti-Semitic. So why is it okay for you to be racist towards a group of people, but anti-Semitism is where you draw the line? One is just as bad as the other, and I don't think that's debatable. And it doesn't matter what race you're being racist towards, racism, period, is a bad thing. They're both equally disgusting. But I think it's because in both instances, in the social sphere, college campuses and places like Twitter, those are the popular things to say. They're the trendy things to say. That's what sounds like the best thing to say because everybody else is saying it. You hate Kanye because you think he hates Jewish people because everybody else hates Kanye because they think he hates Jewish people. And then turn around and say you hate white people because that's the trendy and quirky thing that everybody else is saying too. And these people see zero hypocrisy in this mindset whatsoever. And why is it always these so-called progressive that always preach about how much they hate white people? How in any way, shape, or form is that progressive for society? Is it because they think it's cool to punch at what they perceive as up? They just say what they think is supposed to be said. It's not progressing us anyway, but backwards. We are segregating ourselves, but just with the roles reversed. Because it's pretty evident that these people are not fighting for equality. They're fighting for the top position. And if there's a top position, then there isn't equality. They just want to swap the power dynamic. I just don't understand what is so difficult about being a decent human being and treating people with respect despite their skin color, and acknowledging that other people's opinions matter despite their skin color, or that their lives matter despite their skin color. I find it so funny that saying that white lives matter, period, as a statement, putting it on a shirt or something, is a controversial thing. And I can see why people may get offended by it, because it just seems like it's a response to Black Lives Matter, but it shouldn't be treated as a inflammatory, controversial thing to say. Why not just be like, true, and just go on? Like, why does it have to be attacked? Because when you attack somebody for saying white lives matter, I get what you're trying to do and you think you're doing the good thing, but when you say it out loud and think about it, you're fighting against somebody saying that a group of people's lives matter. It's really a no-win situation, because in the end, if you win, what did you win? You won convincing everybody that white lives don't matter. You see how you can't win it, because everybody on the other side is just going to look at you as crazy. There's no way to win that argument, so you best just not engage in it in the first place. Don't give it the attention, because it's a gotcha argument. That's the whole point of it. I think that socially, white people are at the bottom of the totem pole. In the social sphere, white people can say the least without getting attacked for it. As soon as a white guy adds anything to a discussion, it's shut up, you're white, didn't ask, plus you're white, etc., etc., etc. And it's at the point now where saying all lives matter, which is a true statement, is looked at as controversial. Somehow saying all lives matter implies that you're racist. This is where we're at now in society. Just the other day at work, and look, I live in a predominantly Black area, so naturally, all my coworkers are Black. I asked the server if he could take one more table before his shift ends, and he was on the fence about it because he was about to clock out. But then he asked, are they Black or are they white? I was like, they're Black. Why? And he goes, all right, I'll take it then. Yeah, he just wasn't going to serve them if they were white, because he doesn't like white people. And nobody else there saw any problem with that. But if the roles were reversed, it would probably be a shit show. I've even got another story. An Asian girl I used to talk to who had a strong distaste for white people, despite her parents being incredibly racist towards Black people, worked at a place in Philly. It wasn't like a big chain commercial place. It was just like this little clothing shop run by a bunch of college-age kids. And she said they're having trouble hiring anybody because everybody that's applying is white. And I was like, what's wrong with that? And she said, oh, well, we don't hire white people. I'm like, why? And she goes, oh, well, they don't need the job as much. And I said, anybody that's applying for a job needs a job just as bad as anybody else who doesn't have a job despite the color of their skin. Being jobless is being jobless. If you're broke and need a job. You can't feed yourself just the same. You're not going to starve more because you're Black or starve less because you're white. You have no money and you're going to starve the same regardless. And she went on this whole tangent about how she goes to this nice university and she took a class and she learned all about the systematic blah, blah, blah. And like, she just knows more than me because, oh, I go to a community college, so I must know nothing. And of course, my retort was, well, I learned about the world by experiencing the world. I've actually been out here. I know people's experiences, and it's not as simple as the bullshit you learned in your class. I don't care what your little textbook said or your professor said, because he planted this weird idea in your head that apparently white people don't need jobs. And personally, I think there's no better teacher than experience, no matter the university you go to, how prestigious it may be. And she doesn't even see how ironic that statement was. The girl whose privileged ass was sent to a very nice out-of-state university is sitting here saying that all these white people that are applying for jobs don't need these jobs. Yet she's been living off her parents' bank accounts her whole life, and her parents are paying for her whole college. And I just thought it was so funny and sad. You know, her parents paid for her privileged ass to go to this, you know, very nice out-of-state university, you know, paid all these shitloads of money just for their kids to come out with zero decency and just hating white people. Meanwhile, I just learned from being outside a bunch of life lessons that money can't buy. Clearly. A textbook can only teach you so much, and a professor can only teach you so much, especially about the world and life experiences. Experiencing life teaches you about life. And this instantly brings to mind the knowledge argument and the philosophical thought experiment called Mary in the Black and White Room. And it goes like this. A woman named Mary has lived her entire life in a white and black room, and all she does is study physical descriptions of color. She knows everything there is to know about color, but she has no actual human perceptual experience of color. She's never seen color in this black and white room. All she does is study color. Now the question is, when Mary leaves this white and black room and experiences color for the first time, does she learn anything new? I think people could argue one way or the other, but personally, I think yes. I think when she experiences encountering color for the first time, she learns the experience of encountering color. She learns the experience of seeing color. And I think all these college kids that have grown up their whole lives maybe living in one neighborhood and existing in this little bubble, and then going off to college and learning all about the world and thinking they know so damn much about everything, face this same dilemma. Because most of them have yet to actually experience the world, especially at that age. They've yet to actually experience the world and see how shit works. They learn that racism can only go one way, that white people can cash in on this golden ticket called white privilege at any time, etc., etc., etc. But they've never actually been to a trailer park and experienced white poverty firsthand. They've never been to these small towns where the educational systems are complete horseshit. They've never actually experienced the experiences that their textbooks describe, or maybe that their textbooks just leave out. They can't see the nuances, the circumstances, the details, nothing. They're just Mary in the white and black room. And this all actually makes me think of this, one of my favorite movie scenes of all time, from the movie Good Will Hunting, which follows Matt Damon and Robin Williams. Matt Damon plays this super genius kid who's also incredibly troubled, and Robin Williams is this professor slash mentor, and he's following him around and trying to just like get him on the right path in life and try to make sure he uses his intelligence for something productive for himself or humanity, rather than just let it all go to waste. They're having this like mental battle, and one day Matt Damon comes in and analyzes Robin Williams, his mentor's art, and he tells him about his life and references his dead wife. Just simply by analyzing his art, it told him so much about him because he's able to analyze art so well. And then they get in a little scuffle, and then they part their ways, and then they come back together again. And this prompts Robin Williams' character to give the genius a speech on a bench. And since I can't play the movie scene, I'm just going to recite the speech here. He says, "If I asked you about art, you'd probably give me the skinny on every art book ever written. Michelangelo, you know a lot about him. Life's work, political aspirations, him and the Pope, sexual orientation, the whole works, right? But I bet you can't tell me what it smells like in the Sistine Chapel. You've never stood there and looked up at that beautiful ceiling. Seen that. If I asked you about women, you'd probably give me a syllabus of your personal favorites. You may have even been laid a few times. But you can't tell me what it feels like to wake up next to a woman and feel truly happy. You're a tough kid. I ask you about war, and you'd probably, throw Shakespeare at me, right? Once more into the breach, dear friends. But you've never been near one. You've never held your best friend's head in your lap and watched him gasp his last breath, looking to you for help. And if I asked you about love, you'd probably quote me a sonnet. But you've never looked at a woman and been totally vulnerable. Known someone who could level you with their eyes, feeling like God put an angel on earth just for you, who could rescue you from the depths of hell. And you wouldn't know what it's like to be her angel and to have that love for her to be there forever. Through anything, through cancer. You wouldn't know about sitting up in a hospital room for 2 months holding her hand because the doctors could see in your eyes that the term visiting hours doesn't apply to you. You don't know about real loss because that only occurs when you love something more than you love yourself. I doubt you've ever even dared to love anybody that much. I look at you. I don't see an intelligent, confident man. I see a cocky, scared, shitless kid. But you're a genius. No one denies that. No one could possibly understand the depths of you. But you presume to know everything about me because you saw a painting of mine and you ripped my fucking life apart. You're an orphan, right? Do you think I know the first thing about how hard your life has been, how you feel, who you are because I read Oliver Twist? Does that encapsulate you? Personally, I don't give a shit about all that, because you know what? I can't learn anything from you I can't read in some fucking book. Unless you want to talk about you, who you are, and I'm fascinated, I'm in. But you don't want to do that, do you? You're terrified of what you might say. Your move, Chief. Because all throughout the movie, when they're, his mentors linking up with him for these scheduled little appointments together, he's trying to get to know him and learn about him. And the genius, Will, he's just being so difficult. He can't pull words out of him. He's just like playing mind games. Like I said, they're having this mental battle, It's like mental game of chess. And after he gives him that speech, things start to turn around. But that speech applies so perfectly to these college kids. They read about all this stuff and they think they know so damn much, but they've experienced nothing. They learn that racism and things of this matter can only go one way because they've never experienced it go the other. Unlike me, who I see it play out in my restaurant, for example. I experienced it. That's why I'm able to see that it is present. Every real life experience they've had has been lived through a phone screen. They don't think black people can be racist because they themselves haven't seen it. So they don't think it exists. They think all cops do is run around and shoot random black people because they haven't actually been exposed to police. They simply take what they see in the media and roll with it. They think that is a proper reflection of reality when really it's just agenda setting. They've never actually seen police do the right thing, so they don't think police do the right thing because they haven't had much exposure to police. That's why they say shit like abolish the police and all cops are bastards, because they think they have an idea of all cops. They think what they see on the internet and on the news is a proper reflection of all cops, because they themselves have never actually had to rely on police to keep them safe in their little nice suburban neighborhoods. Like, do you think these old heads and people in the hood living in these areas where police are actually needed want to abolish the police? It's always the people who don't need something that don't see the value in it. Somebody who lives in an igloo probably won't see the value in keeping a fire extinguisher in their house. Just like someone who can snap their fingers and create fire probably won't see the value in being able to create fire from scratch. They've never had to rely on that to keep them safe or keep them out of trouble, or keep them comfortable. They've never had to rely on it, so it's difficult for them to see the value in it unless they can actually have an experience around other people who do need it, where they can stand on the outside and see the value in it for somebody else. Like, you think all these parents out here that send their kids off to school or their kids walk to 7-Eleven to get a snack and they have to worry about their kid getting shot in the crossfire of a shootout. Like, you think they want to abolish police? But it's the people that don't see the value in this that want to speak for the people in these scenarios. And all college is really becoming is this massive echo chamber for sheltered, smart-ass, know-it-all kids who think they have any sort of concept of how the real world operates. Or maybe people who aren't in school, but they just have a lot of trust in the media. But if the media only reports Black death by the hands of police, then you think that police are only out here killing black people. When really, these are just stories that get more clicks, and more clicks mean more money. So why would they not keep pushing that agenda that, oh my God, this is what's happening at this incredibly disproportionate rate. Everybody click on this, look at this article. They are a machine that just feeds off of black death and violence and things of this nature, because it equals more clicks. So of course they're going to report that more. But when you go outside and see what's really going on, it's not very reflective of what they're reporting in the media, because they cherry pick stories. They create a reality, or more or less select parts of reality to blow up and sell as the reality, when it's not at all reflective of actual reality. And if this type of thing interests you, I would definitely recommend researching agenda setting theory, which basically touches on everything I'm saying right now. So I would definitely suggest that if what I'm saying interests you at all. And if you think what I'm saying is silly and there's nothing to back it up, I actually just came across a video today that confirms what I'm saying. So I'm gonna show it to you here.
Witness 2 gentlemen within a 3-week period get stabbed. literally get stabbed. One of them right in front of my face, he just got stabbed, and all for $30. The other one, guy walked up to him, stabbed him in the shoulder, stabbed him in the gut, and walked off. No cops, no nothing. Why are you allowing violent criminals to be repeatedly released on the streets? The train's already saturated with violent criminals, and now you're having them let out with no bail. I can understand the concept of bail reform, but this has gotten out of hand. And until we start putting people behind bars and making them pay their way out, this is not going to change.
Folks in the hood aren't advocating for the abolishment of police because they're the ones who are usually more exposed to the criminals in their neighborhoods. Just like how it's always people who preach that, oh, all prisoners can be reformed and give more jobs to felons and stuff. It's always the people advocating for this that don't actually work around felons. And I've worked around felons, and let me tell you, it doesn't take you long to realize why they're felons. Now, I'm not sitting here and saying all felons are bad and shouldn't be able to work any job, No, of course, there are some people that can be reformed, but they got themselves sent there for a reason. And, you think everyone can be reformed, but why don't you go make one of them angry and see how they handle it? Because that's really all it took when I was around them. And sometimes it wasn't even that much. Like, because I worked at a moving company and they hired felons. My boss was a felon, so I have a lot of experience working around them. And I have also experience working around people that aren't felons. And let me tell you, it's night and day. They weren't all bad, but it is night and day. It's always the people who aren't exposed to crime who think the police are worthless and that we should abolish them. They don't see the value in them because where they reside, the crimes aren't as vicious and they don't occur as often, if even at all. Just like I said, somebody who lives in an igloo may not see the value in keeping a fire extinguisher in the house. They don't need it. There's no reason they would need that shit. So they don't see the value in it. It's worthless to them. There's people in these environments who you think you're speaking for when you say abolish the police because the police only hurt these people. But the people exposed to the crime want police around because it makes them feel safer. And I mean, yes, what you see on the news, you see sometimes police do some terrible things, but they're not going to report every instance of police actually doing the right thing. You know what I mean? So, of course, people who aren't around are going to think that police only just run around here and shoot people and act crazy and are just super corrupt, when realistically, this is not the case. And there's another quote I would like to add before this video ends, and if it's any quote I've quoted throughout this whole video, and I don't really like to quote people, I prefer using my own words and original thoughts, because I think if you go your whole life just quoting people, then what the hell have you said yourself? But if there is one quote I would like for y'all to know, if you haven't heard it already, and it may be a pretty cliche quote to quote, but it doesn't make it any less true than it is or any less thought-provoking than it is a quote from Aristotle, which is, "The more you know, the more you realize you don't know." I think that is one of the most powerful quotes of all time. And don't go looking up the meaning right away, think about it. Like, actually just sit and think about it. So yeah, and I know it's pretty cliche to quote that shit, but it's a powerful quote, man. It's one of my favorites. So yeah, if you enjoyed this video, like and sub for more, comment your thoughts below. Of course, I'll read them and respond. I love seeing what you guys think about these little topics that I pull out my ass. And yeah, guys, hope y'all enjoyed. Peace.